Welcome to Learn Biology, and today our first lesson is going to be Methods and Concepts in Biology and Basic Chemistry. What this has to involve is what exactly defines someone or something as living. So we will call it characteristics of living things. Now, the first thing that defines an object as living is if it consists of DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and what it does is kickstart almost every process, including RNA synthesis and protein synthesis. Now, when DNA kickstarts RNA and RNA kickstarts protein synthesis, this is called the central dogma theory. Now what this states again is DNA to RNA to protein synthesis. Although these processes will be later described, when DNA makes DNA, it is called replication. When DNA makes RNA, it is called transcription. When RNA makes proteins, it is called translation. The second characteristics of living things is energy. Energy is the ability to do work, and what energy does is drive life processes, growth, and reproduction. Now, another thing to remember is metabolism. What metabolism does is allow the chemical energy in food to be converted by the organism. It is the rate at which energy conversions are made. The third characteristic of living things is, let me open a slide here, is cells. Cells are defined as the smallest unit of life. Nothing lives without cells. That is a very, very big point. It's one of the most important points. Don't get me wrong, all the other points are also very important, but usually on tests and quizzes, this is asked as the prime characteristic, as what is defined as a living organism, and usually the answer is if it consists of cells. Now, who was the inventor? Who actually discovered cells? And cells were discovered by this man named Robert Hooke. What Hooke did was look at dead cell walls from a cork tree, and this is what actually created the whole widespread popularity of the word cells. Now here's the pattern that the planet Earth follows. What happens is that the least complicated organisms, called cells apparently, leads to tissues. A group of tissues working together lead to organs. A group of organs working together lead to organ systems. A group of organ systems leads to an organism. Organisms that can reproduce and pass on their genes lead to a species. A species leads to populations. Various populations lead to communities. Various communities lead to ecosystems. Ecosystems consist of abiotic factors and biotic factors. When various ecosystems are together, they create a biome. When biomes are together, they create biosphere. And this is the word characteristic that defines the whole planet Earth, biosphere. Continuing on with the topic of cells, we lead to the cell theory. Now, the cell theory was created with the work of 3 different men at different times, named Schwann, Virchow, and Schleiden. I'm actually gonna replace Schleiden and Virchow, switch their order, because it'll be easier to memorize what they did. So what happened was Schwann was a zoologist, and through his research he found that all animals consisted of cells. Following his work, Schleiden, who was a botanist who studied plants, discovered that all plants consist of cells. Virchow followed the work of both Schwann and Schleiden, and he figured out that all living things have cells. The work of these 3 men created the cell theory. What the cell theory states are 3 laws, you could say. Not really laws because these are theories, but 3 different factors. Would say cells are the basic unit of structure and function in living things. Second, all living things consist of 1 or more cells. And third, cells arise from pre-existing cells. The third law says, as you can read, cells arise from pre-existing cells. This means that a cell reproduces into another cell, and this will again be described in later courses through a process called mitosis and meiosis. The 4th characteristic of living things is transfer of energy and interrelations. What this describes is how energy is transferred from one level to another and how this impacts the whole ecosystem. So how it begins is that at the base are organisms called producers or autotrophs. What autotrophs means is organisms that create their own food through the process of photosynthesis using the sun's energy. To better understand this topic, I'll just delete this text and replace it with a picture. So what this picture describes here, it shows the different levels. So as I was describing the primary producers, and it shows an example of plants or phytoplankton. So using the sun's energy, these organisms create a large amount of food, and this is the biggest level. Alright, it is considered the largest level in the whole food diagram. The food that they produce is eaten by the primary consumers, which are herbivores, animals or organisms that eat only plants. This leads to secondary consumers, carnivores, and this leads to tertiary and quaternary. What also is included in this is that there are organisms called decomposers. Starting from the primary all the way to the quaternary, there are organisms called decomposers who eat dead or decaying material. what to remember again is that as the energy level goes, as these stages go up, the energy level decreases. So this should be actually considered a pyramid rather than a straight rectangle. So all of these are the characteristics of living things. This includes DNA, the use of energy, consisting of cells, and the transfer of energy and interrelations. Thank you for listening to Learn Biology, and see you next time.